Welcome back to the China Puzzle in our first episode of 2021. Joining me today is Nick O'Connor to chat about recent news and events and what we've got coming up for the year ahead. Nick, it's certainly been a busy start to the year.
Yeah, I mean, the last 6 or 7 days, it's just been chaotic. I think there's been some amazing stuff coming out of China and how it impacts the UK and the rest of the world. So what are some of these things that we're talking about?
Some of the recent events we've seen have been in China itself. We've seen some applications of the national security laws continue with arrests of pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong, more than 50 arrests, including the first application of the law to a foreign citizen, which is American lawyer John Clancy.
Yeah, and it seems to be that it's a continuing crackdown that has no signs of abating. We've seen kind of like Chinese foreign ministry officials relating it to Capitol Hill riots that occurred.
Exactly. I think a lot of the stories we've seen just at the start of 2021 have that common theme of the Chinese government really cracking down on some of its key priorities. There's the national security laws, there's the anti-corruption drive with the capital punishment of Chinese businessman Liao Xiaomin. There's also a sort of drive for this anti-monopolization and increased regulation over the big tech firms, which we've seen Ant Group and Alibaba in the headlines a lot recently, and rumours actually swirling that Jack Ma, the founder, has gone missing. He's certainly gone off the radar. That's definitely for sure.
And it's an interesting thing because when you kind of think about the figurehead to the Western world, at least, on when you talk about China Inc. and, you know, who's the face of that? It's Jack Ma. I mean, there's an equal amount of fascination, but also a bit terrifying that they are able and willing and think that there's no repercussions from that the Chinese state will just go, we're just disappearing Jack Ma. I mean, we've kind of seen that in the past with Chinese actresses and kind of other figures, but nothing to the public profile that Jack Ma would have.
Yeah, it's definitely a kind of characteristic of China's increasing assertiveness and dominance. And, you know, I think 2021 will be interesting to see that kind of continuation from last year with this balance of power between the US and China, particularly as the US grapples with its own sort of instability, as we've seen over the last few days, the insurrection with the Trump supporters storming Capitol Hill. I mean, it's very interesting time in geopolitics.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you balance that in with the European Union's negotiations with China on investment deals, and that you have like Biden's national security advisor asking and outwardly kind of going to the German chancellor, please stop this. Do not sign anything for the next 2-3 weeks. You know, like that is the instability that's occurring in the US right now. And this is solely at the foot of Trump. Is causing chaos, and China as being gleeful with pulling apart and further entrenching itself in places, and you know, actively kind of enjoying the chaos. Because in China's eyes, they see it as hypocritical, like, you know, and it's something that is, I wouldn't say it's fair, but it's definitely, they've taken advantage of it.
Yeah, well, it's that interesting juxtaposition, as you mentioned, with the EU. I mean, the US's relationship with China continues to deteriorate. We've got executive orders banning fintech payment apps, and the New York Stock Exchange delisting Chinese telecommunications companies. And on the other hand, we have the EU signing this new investment agreement with China, which is set to be signed and ratified the next year or so. And then when we come to the UK, obviously Brexit's officially happened and it's embarking on new trade agreements and relationships. And we've got the change of ambassador as well.
Yes, after 11 years. So that could be an interesting thing, because the kind of like the Chinese ambassador has been kind of like a forefront of the is it the wolf warrior kind of mindset, and I don't imagine anything changing anytime soon. If anything, I think I believe that China thinks that their policy in that regard has been effective in stirring up debate. So I think it could even be more challenging times ahead.
The topic of the UK's approach to China is something we look at in one of our upcoming episodes, particularly in relation to the UK's relationship with Africa and investment in Africa, and balancing China's increased investment relationships with African nations. We've seen Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Africa this week, adding a new signatory to its Belt and Road Initiative with the Democratic Republic of Congo. And that Africa-China relationship is something that we unpack in one of our upcoming episodes.
There's always been a lot of chat about China investment in Africa, but it's kind of good to see what the contrasts are and how maybe Britain could do things differently now they've removed themselves from the European Union. So I think that's going to be a really interesting topic. And I think very timely, our next video is very much focused on Chinese state enterprises and Chinese business and how it interacts with the Chinese state. So who are you interviewing for that?
Yeah, so we've got Professor Shin Sun from King's College London, who is an expert in that area, and he touches on some of the kind of mechanisms that the Chinese government has in terms of wielding power over private businesses in China, and the enormous growth of the Chinese private sector, particularly in tech, and Alibaba and Ant Group I mentioned in that one as well. So definitely stay tuned for that.
It's going to be a really busy next couple of months. Dare I say a year?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any shortage of topics or events to discuss through the China puzzle, but if our watchers do have anything to suggest that they'd like us to focus on, we'll find the right expert and we'll have a chat and try and unpack these issues as the year unfolds.